Well, good afternoon and happy Tuesday to everyone. This is Blair Marvin, Vice President of the Augusta Metro Chamber of Commerce, and we are appreciative of you joining us yet again on our part of our Achieving More Together Today webinar series. We run these Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3. This is our 5th one, and we are just really pleased and honored to have our panelists today speaking on the governor's executive order. We're joined with Cal Ray from the Augusta Economic Development Authority, also Adela Kelly from the Georgia Department of Economic Development, and Elliot Price with Georgia Tech Enterprise Innovation Institute. So thank you all for being here today. We will offer our attendees the opportunity to ask questions via the questions button at the bottom of your screen. These will be filtered through our Director of Events, Sarah Best, and answered at the end of the presentation. And then we will, as accustomed with our prior webinars, send you the resources mentioned and a recording of the webinar following the presentation, and all of those can be found on our website for the prior webinars we've conducted as well. So at this time, I am going to turn it over. We're going to start with introductions from Adela, and thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you, Blair. Adela Kelly, and I'm with the Georgia Department of Economic Development. Are we just going to go around?
Cal?
Hey, I'm Cal Ray. I'm president of the Development Authority of Augusta, Georgia. Here we cover all of Richmond County.
And Elliot Price. I'm with Georgia Tech, our Georgia Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which supports manufacturing, and located here in Augusta.
Okay, everyone. Of course, the reason why we're here today is to discuss the executive order from Governor Kemp. As we all know, that was put into place April the 3rd at 6 p.m. going through April the 13th. Now, really, we're here to talk about should my business remain open? And 3 of the business categories that he discussed in the order was seasoned person operations, which seasoned person operations were the businesses that are like the bars, the nightclubs, the gyms, the fitness centers, the nail salons, etc. Then we can go into what critical infrastructure. Now, the order, of course, as we all know, is to ensure a safe and healthy Georgia. The order followed the federal guideline to determine critical infrastructure from the Department of Homeland Security, from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is CISA. So with that being said, on the critical, we were looking at industries in certain categories, such as healthcare and public health, law enforcement, public safety, first responders, food and agriculture, energy, water and wastewater, transportation, logistics, public works, infrastructure support services, communications and information technology, other community or government-based operations and essential functions, and critical manufacturing and hazardous materials. So those were some of the, there's a little bit more. Some of the others that were on there were financial services, chemical, defense, industrial base, commercial facilities, residential, shelter, facilities and services, and hygiene products and services. So with that being said, there were some categories that we were looking at on critical infrastructure. If indeed the company met, there were 16 requirements that a company had to meet in order to be considered a critical infrastructure. On our website, which is georgia.org, if you go to our website and you hit the very top, which is a COVID-19, you can go in there and it'll really kind of describe what the 16 categories were. What I will do is I will kind of go over these really briefly. I'm going to read from this if you all don't mind, okay? So the first one was a company had to implement measures to mitigate the exposure of the spread of the virus among its workforce. So number one was really screening and evaluating workers who exhibit signs of illness, such as if they have a fever over 100.4, if they have cough, shortness of breath, requiring workers who exhibit signs of illness not to report to work or seek or to seek medical attention. Enhance sanitation of the workplace as appropriate. Require hand washing or sanitation by workers at appropriate places within the business location. Providing personal protective equipment is available. Prohibiting gathering of workers during working hours. Permitting workers to take breaks and lunch outside in their office or personnel space, or in such other areas where proper social distancing is attainable. And if possible, to telework from home, staggered shifts, if possible, with your workers. You were to hold all meetings and conferences virtually, which is what we're kind of doing today, and deliver intangible services remotely whenever possible. Discourage workers from using other workers' phones, desks, offices, or other work tools and equipment. Provide disinfectants and sanitation products for workers to clean their, to keep their clean workspace, equipment, and tools, and to prohibit handshaking and other unnecessary person-to-person contact. Placing notices that encourage to wash your hands at the entrance of the workplace and in other areas of the workplace as well. And also, if you did have or do have a credit card machine, not to touch the pen pad or the pen to sign for your receipts. And those are the 16 in order what is considered a critical essential business. Now, the non-critical essential are basically all those. And Cal, do you want to go ahead and do the last 4 on those?
Yeah, let's go through those, because there's also, not only do you have 20 instead of 16, you also have a couple of other minimum requirements you have to face. Let me get to that section. So for the non-critical infrastructure, so besides that first list of cease, all businesses of that type must cease, these are the ones that are considered non-critical infrastructure. So you have minimum basic operations, you have the 20 requirements, and then you have a social distancing rule. So let's just go through that. For the social distancing rule, it's what everyone's heard. No more than 10 people gathering in a single location. Look at that as a room, a location. The definitions can differ depending on the type of building, and then at least 6 feet between each person at all times. So that's your minimum. You have to be able to maintain that social distancing rule. And then minimal basic operations. There's kind of 3 components to this one. And it's the minimum necessary activities to maintain the value of a business, establishment, corporation, nonprofit, or organization. It says such minimum necessary activities include remaining open to the public, subject to the restriction of this order. The next is the minimum necessary activities to facilitate employees or volunteers being able to work remotely from their residence, or members or patrons to be able to participate remotely from their residences. Then of those 20 requirements, the 16 that Adela just went through are all the same. There are only 4 that are in addition. So you have to maintain all of the same 16 requirements that critical infrastructure have to maintain, but then you have 4 additional. You must enforce social distancing of non-cohabitating persons while present on such entities' leased or owned property. So if you have patrons in your location, you must have them maintain that 6 feet, unless they're husband, wife, brother, sister, live in the same household. Then it says for retailers and service providers, providing for alternative points of sale outside of buildings, including curbside pickup, delivery of products and or services if an alternative point of sale is permitted under Georgia law. Then you have increasing physical space between workers and customers, back to really that social distancing rule. And then the last one is the same, increasing physical space between workers, work sites to at least 6 feet. So your own workers have to maintain that 6-foot rule, just like any of your customers may. And those are really the biggest differences. You have to show you have to stay open to basically meet the value of your business or establishment, you have to maintain those 16 critical requirements, that the non-critical plus the 4 additional, which goes back to that social distancing rule, which is that 10 people in a single location and that 6-foot rule. And if you can meet those, let's say 25 requirements, you can maintain, what's the word I'm trying to say here? You can maintain sales to the public. So that really covers the non-critical in addition to the critical. And really, besides that list on the very front of the governor's order, anybody can maintain openness to the public if you can meet all of these different criteria.
So I will say again, if you go to our website, which is georgia.org, and just hit COVID-19 at the top, if for some reason, after we've kind of gone over the 16 and the 20, you still are not clear, there's a form that you can fill out where you can send a form in, and we can look at the form and we can determine whether or not you're critical or non-critical.
Adela, that is a good point. In the governor's order, the Georgia Department of Economic Development is the one that will be charged with determining that. And that's good. Sometimes people haven't noticed that, but yeah.
Yes, correct. And we've actually had some. So please, if you are still undetermined, please go in there and fill the form out. And I guess that brings us over to Elliot now.
Okay.
Hey, Elliot, before you get started, why don't we add, we do have some of those in our critical infrastructure, some of our larger manufacturers that have been providing letters to their employees. So when they're traveling, they're not going to have to try to prove, because there are some not residential, there's some individual requirements. If you're out, you have to be shopping for supplies or getting medical attention to be out of your house. But some of our larger employers have provided letters for employees to keep on them or in their vehicles when they're traveling to and from work, when they're part of that critical infrastructure piece. So if you are remaining open to the public because you meet all of these requirements, it's probably not a bad idea to have your employees have something showing that they're employed going to a physical location so that they have something on them, because it is a misdemeanor if you're found to be in violation of this.
Okay.
Sorry, Elliot.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Yeah, I did a little research before I had an opportunity to speak to this group and talk to one of our programs, which is the OSHA support group. And the OSHA group provides free support and preparation for you to get ready for all that's going on right now in your workplace. One of the documents they showed me that I wanted to share with everybody, and this is something you can pick up, is from OSHA. It's the guidance of preparing workplace for COVID-19. And this is something we'll send to you through the chamber, and I'm sure, and Adela, I'm sure will have it located on her website area. It's a great document to have to prepare yourself. I also, at the same time, there are other resources available out there too. The thing that I did this morning and yesterday was I called about 10 of the companies I work with, because we work with the manufacturers all through the area, try to find out how this is affecting them and what they've done to prepare themselves for this particular dreaded disease that's going through us all. And if you think about manufacturing and their ability to be successful, it all falls back to planning. And so what I'm finding out from the larger companies, even the smaller companies, even though they may not have a staff that are going through this, are trying to think, what are the risks now associated with their companies? They want to survive. They want to be able to continue to provide their product and their service to the companies that they serve. And so a lot of them now have gone to a planning process and looking at the risk of what could happen to them. And a lot of that's based on the resources they have to have in order to be a successful manufacturer, such as their suppliers, such as their employees, such as their machines even. I talked to one of the companies who is having a difficult time right now getting a piece of equipment repaired because the company that they were working with was deemed non-essential, and they've laid off most of their people, and they're at a point now where they're having a challenge to get somebody to come in and repair a piece of equipment that was critical for their operation. So you can see there's a lot of risk associated with what's happening right now in the workplace. First of all, of course, they care about their people. They want to make sure that people are coming in safe. and all the things that Cal was talking about and Adela has been mentioning is all based on the fact that safety is critical. It's critical from a lot of reasons. First of all, we want our employees who are coming in to be able to go home in a safe way and not have anything they take home with them that can contaminate their families at home. So they know they have a responsibility. But they also recognize that if just 1 or 2 people in their companies was to be infected by this COVID-19, what that could do to their overall operation. At that point, they probably had to close down. And so again, so there's a lot of reasons for looking at this and taking this very seriously, because it ultimately could shut down their plants. And so there's a lot of nervousness going on in the companies I talked to. And there's a lot of things that they're doing, which is pretty significant. Everything from the larger companies. I mean, some of the larger companies, we know about Textron and Firestone, and how they've had to furlough, lay off some people during this time period. A lot of the companies I talked to also were taking a look at their employees, and those that are non-essential, if they could get rid of it, they could not get rid of them, but if they could find ways to produce with less people. They're looking at that as an option right now. A lot of the companies, as far as the people are concerned, are giving people the opportunity to work from home if they don't have to be on the job to do that work. It's amazing. I can't walk into their plants anymore. They've cut their plants off to outside entities coming in, again, for the fear of bringing in some kind of contamination to their employees. A lot of the companies are looking at the employees before they even walk in the door to make sure that they're not doing the things that we were mentioning before, coughing, having a fever. Some of the larger companies now have nurses on staff that are actually taking temperatures of people before they come on and before they're put into positions. And so I talked to one company, happened to be a pallet company here locally in town, that is still waiting for some thermometers to come in so they can do some testing. There's a backlog of those along with everything else that support their ability to maintain a healthy work area. And so there are some supplies that are affecting companies today. There's a company right now, one of their suppliers is an international from China. They just can't get shipments from those locations. And they're going to be going through a 2 month probably period of time where they're not going to have enough materials to be able to run their operation. So obviously they're not going to run it. The ones I talked to somehow were able to determine that they are necessary. That one company, it was a chemical company. They produced to the food industry. They're going great guns right now. They can't produce enough. So there is a lot of companies that are looking at the risk factors that are associated with them being able to continue to supply to their customers. They feel that if they can last a couple of months here, they do recognize that there are some of their critical suppliers that are affecting them. Now, on the jobs though, they're doing everything we're talking about doing at home. In the break rooms, they separate the employees by the 6 feet. As a matter of fact, they train people that if you can touch anybody by stretching your arms both ways, then you're too close. That's your 6 foot basically that you're looking for. So there is a pattern to making sure. In the work areas, they try to identify where people are having to congregate, and they're providing with the proper PPE so that they're not breathing on each other or not contaminating each other. There are respirators. Some of the smaller companies don't have the respirators right now, and again, it's based on resources and what they do have. That kind of gives you a little bit of an overview, I think, of what's happening. I haven't really seen, again, the companies I talked to all were doing good and holding their own. They are doing some pretty novel things, though, which is pretty cool. For example, some of the companies who have more than 10 employees that may be in the break room at the same time, they're staggering their break times so that they're not in the break rooms at the same time, but they're spread out so there's only 10 people in there at a time. Even shift-wise, one company is running 4 10-day shifts, so they have the 40 hours. They're starting on a Monday and going through till Thursday. The next group is coming in on a Wednesday and going through to Saturday. So, or something else. They have their 4 days in there Tuesday and going to Saturday. So they at least stagger a couple of days where the employees aren't all in there at the same time, in order for there to be a little bit more of a spread of the people who are in there. So that's one of the considerations that was had. I guess I'll stop here and see if there's any questions, but that kind of gives you a feel for it. The companies are trying to survive, but they recognize that there's a lot of risk associated with not only the machines, making sure the machine's running and making sure they have people available to service those machines. The people, making sure there's people. They're even trying to cross-train people now, just in case where they were to lose somebody because of a sickness or couldn't come back in. So cross-training is now becoming very important. The materials, their suppliers, looking at their suppliers very closely. A lot of them are trying to order more quantities than they really need and having to store those things in anticipation of something maybe running out. The machines, the methods they're using right now, they're all modifying their methods. Fortunately, most companies, the companies that are in the Augusta area and probably all over, have got good processes for health science, health safety, and environment. They have things in place to respond to. Now this is a lot different than that. They still have those processes in place, and they're able to adapt to it because of that.
So this is Blair chiming in really quickly. I just wanted to see if you all had some tips or any information that you could share for the businesses that are able to remain operational so that they are being most effective and maybe just adapting the way that they serve their customers for those that are able to stay functioning and running.
Elliot, any idea?
Yeah, well, I think, again, it goes back to looking at the risk. One of the things they're doing, the ones that are surviving are doing is communications. I think the communication is probably the key item when it comes down to making people aware of what's expected as far as the PPE, and being serious about it when they see it's not being followed, that they respond to that quickly. So the companies that are doing good are ones that communicate. They recognize that emails aren't the best way to communicate to everybody. It's good for some groups, so they have different alternative ways of making sure they get the word to their employees. They have them sign off on things once they've been told how to do things. They recognize that they can't accept individuals not following the processes and the procedures they put in place because of the effect it may have on the total business. So yes, I think that it's critical for them to do that. And that's probably the area, like in everything, whether it's your home environment, whether it's wherever it is, communication is always the thing that can save you or break you. And so the companies that are doing a good job right now are the companies that are creating the policies, communicating, and training people. I mean, some people don't know how to put on a respirator properly. There's different things that you have to have in place to make sure that people are going to be safe. And communications is the way to go about doing that. So I think if there's one bit of advice is don't keep this issue closed behind a door. That find out from people the areas that could affect them in their jobs, and take action on ways to make those areas safe for them. If people do not want to catch this bug, it's one of those things that scares us all. And having to go to work, they should have the opportunity to say, I'm coming way too close to this individual in the work area that I'm doing. I'm exposed much too much. Communication from a standpoint, we talk about the equipment, talk about touching things. Adela brought up some great things, even as far as the credit card and making sure you don't hit the tabs and things of that sort. There's buttons everywhere on these pieces of equipment. If you touch a piece of equipment, you have the necessary cleaning solutions at the site. Wear your gloves, but make sure you clean those things off. It's no different than anything else, but they're in an environment where they're exposing a lot of other people. And, they want to make sure that those individuals aren't impacted in a negative way because of something they did or a policy they did not follow.
I do agree with Elliot. Having a plan, if you don't have a critical resource you need, whether it's PPE, let one of us know, Adela, myself. We can see if we can help find you a source. We've been doing that for people, whether it's finding a cleaning company because you need more product, or whether you need someone to come in and help sterilize your plant because of interactions of people. The biggest thing is to have a plan. If there's a resource you need, let one of us know. We may not have it, but surely between our networks, either statewide or even across the Southeast, we can help find you a resource you're looking for. I think that's one of the big things that will come out of this is the way the supply chain works will change. Getting everything you need out of China will not stay the same. You'll see a huge change over the next year in how that works. But if you need something, whether you're critical or not critical, if you need something, let one of us know and let us see if we can connect you to someone who can find it. That goes across the board. Between Adele and myself, Elliot, a number of other people in the community who are working to help people, whether it's respirators, whether it is face shields, whether it's face masks. We've had companies that have started retooling and making new products because their products aren't in demand right now. So they've shifted to making safety supplies. So there's a lot of innovative ways that our companies in this area have adapted. I think the main thing is they all want to keep their people safe. And I would always advise you to default to the idea of safety. If somebody can work from home, let them work from home. Shift schedules if needed. Make sure you have the right sterilization and cleaning products. The main thing, keep your people safe. The last thing you need is for this to spread through your own workforce. But there are a lot of resources in the community. A lot of us want to help. Any of my staff are glad to help. Adela and the entire Department of Economic Development have been great about helping companies. Elliot and his group, whether it's also sharing Georgia Tech's resources or Augusta University's resources, or Eric Parker over at the clubhouse. He's been doing a lot of things in the community. There are a lot of people here to help. Use us either for a support network or helping find you the right place for the right supplies or the right things you need to keep in operation to keep your business alive.
And I certainly echo that. Please feel free to reach out to any of us and let us know just on anything that you need, anything at all. Call us. Ask the questions. We'll try to have an answer for you.
We spent a lot of time the last 2 weeks helping people from the chamber staff to our own staffs, talking to businesses in the community, helping them through various issues they face. But that's what we're here for. That's what the chamber, the Department of Economic Development, our office is here for. Please just make sure you reach out and we'll do our best to help you.
Absolutely. So does anyone have any questions from the audience?
Two great organizations here to work with you. So yeah, definitely call on your resources and we can help you.
If you guys want to shoot us a quick question, if you have questions, please do so. We have those questions coming in.
We have not gotten any questions yet, so go ahead and submit your question if you're able. I know I did get a response from one of the partners that we have on the call, one of our members whose company is interested in helping with the rebuilding of the machine as part of the example that Elliot gave. So we'll be making that connection to see if there's an opportunity there for her organization to help. Anything that you all want to share about the order end date and a plan for recovery as you anticipate that shift based on the governor's tentative or order date as it stands now?
I can address. So the order actually is set to end at 11:59 on the 13th of April. If you look at about every other state, I would say 45 states have similar orders out, some more, some a little bit less, but they all, the earliest one ends April 10th. The latest one right now ends May 5th. So who knows when it may actually end? Probably not April 13th, but we'll see what the healthcare officials advise our governor of. But for now, April 13th is when that executive order is set to expire. I think the biggest thing is we want to see as many companies survive this, stay open, continue to provide products to the community. So we'll see when that may end. But right now, April 13th. But as I mentioned, there are a lot that in between now and May 5th. So that date is probably a very fluid date. So maintaining all of these 16 or 20 plus the social distancing piece. If you don't have a plan, you need one in place immediately so you can stay open and so you can continue to provide services in your business to bring revenue in to stay afloat. Also, many other resources out there, whether it's the paycheck protection programs or any of the SBA programs between the state side and the chamber side and our side with the Development Authority. A lot of resources out there. Look at those, see if you have questions on how you can get some of those forgivable loans, some of them are loans, some of them are grants. See what's out there, and if any of us can help you there in the same way to try to provide a revenue stream for your company. A lot of resources out there, part of that $2 trillion package. I know banks are being overwhelmed by some of that, but if we can help you there, help guide you to the right resources, same thing. We want to help you. We want you to stay open. We want you to keep providing valuable products to the community and the region.
One other thing too is Georgia Tech does have a Georgia MEP OSHA consultation program we're participating with right now, and they can provide you with free information too that Adela and Cal have if you need to have that contact.
I do want to say that I currently have a company who on Friday will have over 300 masks. So if anyone is looking for any of the medical masks in your facilities, shoot me an email and let me know, and I can make the connection with the company.
That's it. If anybody on this call, if there are PPE items you need, I know there are people in the community working on that. We had working on an open source piece as well, trying to find resources that are needed in the community. So if you have a need for those PPE items, let us know, see what we can find for you, whether it's face masks, face shields, gloves, anything else you may need. That's a big piece. Now, what are you hearing from the rest of the state? Are you hearing a lot of people staying open, being able to follow these guidelines and being able to maintain their presence to the public, producing product?
Yes, absolutely. We are hearing that.
There's a lot of companies right. There's a lot of companies right now that are like Della says, that are trying to convert some of their capacity into providing and making some of these items that people need. We have 2 or 3 here locally that are doing that right now. And so again, if you think about that also. The challenge is that a lot of the cut and sew businesses left the region, and finding machines and people who are experienced in that area can be a challenge sometimes. But again, there's going to be opportunities where there is a dark area.
As a general rule, I say most of the people we've talked to are doing their best to stay open, at the same time, again, trying to take care of their employees and their customers. So there have been a lot of questions on how do they meet these thresholds, how do they maintain safety, but at the same time, how do we keep those businesses open and our economy in some form or fashion running?
So someone had a question. The question was, what was the website that was provided to take the quiz to see if we are essential? The website is georgia.org. And at the very top of the website, you will see COVID-19. Hit that, and that'll take you into our website. And it will describe essential, critical infrastructure, and non-critical infrastructure. And we kind of discussed the 16 and the 20. If, for example, you are critical, you have to follow those 16 recommendations. Under the non-critical, there's 20. And if for some reason you are still not able to self-assess the business, then there's a form that you can fill out.
And I'll add, in the handouts that the chamber had for the invite to this webinar, and there's a document called CISA, and it actually walks you through the critical infrastructure pieces. If you read through that array of businesses and industries that are considered, many businesses can make an argument for critical infrastructure. You're still going to maintain all of those different pieces, but there are a lot of different ways to be considered critical, to be able to stay open, stay to the public. But remember, if you're not in that list of 10 or 12 industries in that very first part of the governor's order, you can stay open. And you, depending critical, not critical, you've got 4 additional components to maintain, which are just really social distancing components. But there are ways as long as you can maintain safety of both your employees and the general public to remain open. So nobody besides the high touch points, the hairdressers and the estheticians and salons, places of that nature, almost everyone else has the option to stay open to the public to keep a revenue stream coming in, as long as you can maintain safety. And I'll stress that you must be able to maintain safety.
Okay, so we have another question. The question is, in addition to Second City Distillery, are you finding any other suppliers that can fill the void for hand sanitizer? Have you heard of any, Elliot or Cal?
I'm trying to think right now. That group. I've heard. Was it one of the breweries was converting one of their lines so they could do a hand sanitizer? So there are some of the, but that's not locally in our area. No, I can't think of anybody that's currently doing that. I have heard of this cut and sew operation that their business wasn't in masks, or they're currently making masks. But as far as the hand sanitizer, I have not heard.
So if we're looking for a list, we can certainly see what we have at the state level. And what I can do is send that over to Blair. And she can share that information with others in Georgia that are supplying the hand sanitizer and or producing the hand sanitizer for that fact.
Within our Georgia MEP group, we'll share this with everybody, is where we've got 9 regional managers around the state and a lot of also project managers. And we're getting a database together right now of the companies and their ability to produce alternate products based on the demands right now. And so I'll have that available and send that to Cal and send that to Adela, so that'd be available to them in hopes that we can find other sources. And so we're working on that right now. Matter of fact, they're collecting the data as we speak.
That's perfect. Thank you, Elliot.
Do we have any other questions?
Blair, I would just say, anyone, if you guys do have questions, anybody listening, send them to us. Again, if there's a product you need, a supply piece in your supply chain you need, between Adela's network across the state, Elliot's network across the state, and then our counterparts really all over the Southeast, there's a chance we can help connect you to the right people to help complete that missing component you may be facing or a shortage you have coming up. And
Great,
on
thank you.
Distillery question, I know Second City and Augusta, but also their location in Edgefield is also doing hand sanitizer. And I'm sure there are others, but those are the ones that I've heard about so far.
Great. Well, thank you again. And on the back end of this, as mentioned, we'll be sending the presentation along with some additional resources and the contact information for our 3 presenters today. Thank you for your time and sharing that information. And for those of you that have joined us, please know that on Thursday, our next webinar is tips for working parents to successfully homeschool. We will have a panel to include Melinda Cobb from Richmond County Board of Education, our educational consultants and coaches from 9 Owl in South Carolina, and Candace Garrett, who is a homeschool mom herself, hopefully continuing to be that resource and to educate, inform, and help everyone stay motivated and positive. We appreciate your support and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.